Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a slightly delayed Stat Check episode 101, WTC List and Found. Somebody added a WTC to the beginning of that. I was familiar with the original name, such as life. I am Innes, and I am joined by Jeremy and the one and only, the eminent, the traitorous, backstabbing monster, Brian Syfe. Welcome to the show, guys. Thank you for joining us. I hope everybody is having a lovely Tuesday afternoon, evening, or Wednesday morning, I guess, for those of you who are the wrong side of the world. We're here to talk about the last couple of weeks in stats because we have finally we have some proper stats on Pariah Nexus, really getting into it. We've had a bunch of super majors, Tacoma and the LSO this weekend, notably, as well as a bunch of events in the UK and otherwise. So lots of data to go through. So it'll be some interesting stuff to try and pull some conclusions, maybe give a bit of hint about what might happen in the results of WTC, because everybody knows WTC is always based on singles results and nothing ever goes chaotic. And then we will be here to have a bit of a chat about the WTC lists, which did go live basically today. I think they technically came out like last night, right? So who knows? They came out sometime in the past 24 hours, and life has not been the same since. So yeah, we will be going through some of the ones that we found interesting from that. We'll be highlighting some general overviews. We've got the factional stuff again, and we'll talk about some of that stuff. We'll get Brian and Jeremy's perspectives on it from the USA and Canada camp, as well as mine from the Scotland camp, and we'll see how everything is going. We'll then roll into some show questions as usual, and we'll try to keep this one to a tight 90 minutes or so because we all have places to be, and we did a bumper bonus mega show last week. If you didn't catch last week's episode, doing the captains roundtable, I say captains, lots of really cool 40k players roundtable. We had representatives. 14 WTC teams represented it on the show, which was really awesome. Go back and check that episode out if you haven't already. It is one of the highlights of my year, is getting to do cool stuff like that in prep for WTC, and I'm looking forward to putting together the newcomer show, which will be coming as a piece of bonus content sometime in the next week or so that everybody will have a chance to look at as well. With that said, Jeremy, how are you doing?
I am doing well. I seem to have broken my travel curse, or at the very least, passed it on to other
Nathan.
people. I think Nathan in this particular case.
Nathan's
Nathan,
still
for
in
anyone
stats.
who's asking why Nathan's not on the show right now, Nathan made the mistake of taking a travel voucher in exchange for a delayed flight. Said delayed flight was then canceled because of CloudStrike, and he is now stuck in Seattle until Thursday.
Very
Lesson
painful.
learned: do not trust the vouchers. But yeah, otherwise I'm doing well. Had a great weekend at Tacoma. It was great to see a lot of friendly people. Many crisp high fives were handed out, and a couple crisp high fives were upgraded. Yeah, just I love the opens. They're a ton of fun. The energy there is just so wonderful. Yeah, overall it was just a great experience. That's where I'm at. How
And
about
we are
you?
also joined by Brian. Brian, tell us a bit about who you are, why people should care what you have to say, and how your week's been.
Well, they shouldn't. Kind of start there. So I'm Brian. I'm a player on Team Ignite, and this year I have the privilege of playing for Team USA to represent my country. Very excited about that. And before I played with a small local club at WTC. That a bunch of uppity guys who tried their best, and I'm excited to see them do really well this year. Scotland, so that's how Innes and I met. And this week has just been going pretty well. Just a lot of practice, a lot of prep. Marking off all the lists that I look at and go, I don't know what that does, so I should find out. So that's been fun. A lot of practice.
Yeah, Brian sent me through his practice schedule, and it was like, yeah, between now and the 26th, he's got like 10 games booked or something stupid like that. So if you're prepping for WTC and you're not prepping like the USA, you're probably not prepping to beat the USA, which not a lot of people are doing that. So weird that. I would imagine the USA are going to do fairly well this year, Brian. What's your hopes and goals for the tournament?
I mean, we want to win it. That's really what it comes down to. I think we have a really good team. Everybody that's on the team, even the quote unquote new players, have been to WTC before. Many of them have rings from winning WTC before. It's very exciting. This amount of experience, this amount of effort. Everyone's trying really hard, and to be surrounded by these guys, it makes me feel like I don't belong. So just try not to shit the bed and see how it goes.
Fair play. And have you been up to much? Have you been up to much hobby and practice? What have you been doing recently? You're using a commissioned Thousand Sons army, right? So no hobby
Yeah,
on the table this year.
yeah, I'm lucky. I'm lucky enough to be able to afford a commission army. So I'm not actually painting my army, which is unusual for me. Usually WTC is not practice games; it's painting. which is why I have so many practice games booked now. Yeah, mostly just been working. Worked really busy. Getting ready for my vacation. I'm really looking forward for WTC. I have a couple days beforehand to kind of unwind and then head up to Belgium and begin the business.
Fair play. All right, Jeremy, why don't we roll this over into the Pariah Nexus stats?
Yeah, so I'm gonna
first few. I mean, we're like a month in now, right? But like the first few weeks of proper data, after everybody's had a chance to like adjust their lists and get used to things, how are they coming in?
Yeah, so we're going to look at the last 3 weeks of data because that's basically what's sitting in front of me right now, and that represents a quite large sample. We're now looking at like over 2,000 players, which may as a result over 50, somewhere around 5,000 games played between all of those, which means 11,000 games, 5,000 matches, because every match is 2 players. So really big sample of data, really interesting diversity in terms of the overall numbers. I'm going to give you and Brian one guess each as to what the top faction over the last 3 weeks has been.
Space Wolves.
No.
I think
really good guess last pack.
I think it's going to be Blood Angels.
Also no. Blood Angels are number 3 and Space Wolves are number 6. I said one guess. I'm just going to go through them now.
Yeah, no, that's it. One guess.
So, rounding out on the top end of this, we have Drukhari in first place with 58 players, making up just under 3% of the meta.
Yeah, we would never get there.
No, I know. They have a 58.4% game win rate. They have won 3 events. They have top 4'd an additional 5 events, and then another more 8 top 10s for a 2.57 overrep.
It's a lot of overrep.
Yeah, I mean, this is somewhat small sample size, but also like they are crushing it. And I don't think any of these were Scary.
That's a good army. I mean, I think it's just it's been underrepresented for a while, and I think we're starting to see some space in the meta where it can finally shine.
Yep,
yeah, there are even a few good teams at WTC, like Sweden have Drukhari, for example. So I think we'll be starting to see. Yeah, you guys can barely count. I said good teams.
All right. In second place, we have the Adeptus Sororitas, the Sisters of Battle, making up 4.2% of the meta, with a 57.9% win rate, 3 event wins, 10 top 4s, and a 2.12 overrep. Nothing too surprising there. The vast majority of this, from what I've been looking at lately, has been Bringers of Flame.
Shocked.
Unsurprisingly. Turns out Fast Gun is actually good, despite what Anthony may want to say.
Yeah, I mean, is Fast Gun ever really bad? Like, it'd be really weird if it wasn't.
Yeah, because Bringers of Flame is the winningest of them all. 67 players and a 60.9% win rate. Hallowed Martyrs is actually bringing down the average at 52%. Army of Faith has a 38% win rate somehow, with only 10 players, but still, it's very much the.
I've only played against Sisters once, and it was Army of Faith, and I did beat it. So happy to be contributing to it, getting punched down in the rankings.
Fair enough. All right. And then in third place, we have our Blood Angels that you had thought about. 92 players, making up 4.4% of the meta. They have a 57.6% win rate, so just shy behind Sisters of Battle. They have, however, had 3 event wins, 12 top 4s for a 2.43 overrep. So those 3 armies all having above a 2 is pretty wild. I will explain for those listeners who are newer to the show. Overrep represents it's a fraction of basically how many players make up the faction in the overall meta relative to how many make it to the top 4. So an overrep above 1 means that they're showing up in the top 4 more often than they're represented in the overall meta. So like an overrep of 2 means they're showing up twice as often in top 4s as they are in the overall distribution of players. And then below 1 means that they are technically underperforming and they're showing up less often.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's still wild to me that Blood Angels exist in their current state and didn't get changed at all in the previous balance data slate.
When you filter them down to just Sons of Sanguinius, they're above 60%.
Yeah. It's absolutely, completely wild that the army exists in the state that it does.
I was this close to being able to play them at WTC. It's going to be awesome. It's having the most fun I've ever had. And then they asked me if T-Zones were good, and my life got ruined.
Well, and also John discovered something fun, so
That's true.
he got captain privileged there. Fourth place, we have Thousand Suns, 70 players, a 3.3% win rate. They have a 57.1% win rate overall. They have won one event with 4 top 4s for 1.07 over up. So if you ignore their win rate being slightly above that 55% goal, they're perfectly balanced.
Yep. Perfectly balanced.
The next army in the list will surprise and make Anthony very upset. It is World Leaders with 106 players and 5.1% of the meta. They have a 55.2% win rate and 1 event win with 4 top 4s for 0.70.
Anecdotally, it seems wild to me that there are as many World Leaders players as Blood Angels players.
There are more, actually.
Yeah, I know.
106 versus 92. Like, they are the, like...
Yes, it's the same picture.
5th or 6th. There are more World Leader players than there are Codex Marine players in the last 3 weeks.
It's a really low bar to cross. I would assume there are more like pigs currently in the sky than there are Codex Space Marine players. But
all right, speaking of Codex Space Marines, let's bop to the bottom 5 then. In dead last, we have Death Watch. They have had 12 players over the last 3 weeks, so don't really meet any of our thresholds, but I'm still going to talk about them because it's funny. They have a 40.4% win rate. They have not managed a single event win or a single top 4, so they have a 0 for over up. Congratulations,
it is worth
Death
shouting
Watch
out
players, for showing up.
we will finally be able to remove Deathwatch from our stats, as they are getting removed from the game when the Imperial Agent Codex shows up.
It's true. I will have to add an Imperial Agent row to this, but that's fine.
Don't we already have one because of the?
No, I don't have a row in here for Imperial Agents. I
don't.
just track them separately because there's usually like one person every month that plays them. So I'll probably leave them out of this chart. Second from the bottom, and I would actually say the worst performing faction right now is Space Marines. 104 players, 5% of the meta. They have a 41.5% meta. They have managed 4 top 4s. They have not won an event, but those 4 top 4s do push them to a 0.72 over rep, which is something, I guess.
And there are like 3 people playing Codex Space Marines at WTC this year. I know Kev Dollinger is playing Ironstorm still. Technically, he's playing Imperial Fist Ironstorm, but he has no Imperial Fist characters.
Sure. I think every time you talk about Codex Space Marines, you should pick a new random chapter and say, like, Space Sharks have a 42% win rate.
Carwadons. We'll go then to Minotaurs. We'll just do all the Forge World factions that used to exist, just to make all those.
White Scars every other week, just to keep humble.
Yeah.
White Scars, that's not a real army anymore. They have 1 data sheet and it's worse than a generic captain.
Do they have a con as well, or do they just have Corsaro?
Just actual Corsaro con, yeah.
Lame.
He is
all right.
awful.
They're not real. Gene Stealer Cult's at 27 players over the last 3 weeks. They had a 43% win rate, so they are better than Marines and Death Watch, which is a bar you can trip over. However, they did manage 2 top 4s in that time period, which means that they have a positive over rep of 1.38. So good job, those 27 Gene Stealer players, or more just those 4 that managed to finish in the top 4. Rounding out our bottom 5, we have Chaos Space Marines. 141 players, 6.7% of the meta, and a 44.6% win rate. However, they have managed to win 3 events, 4 actually, because I'm realizing that my data here is missing 1 French event. Please stop using mini headquarters and just use BCP. 3 event wins, 7 top 4s for a 0.93 over rep. So CSM just barely below where they should be.
Yeah, I mean, when players like Josh Roberts are still playing your faction, and they won 2 GTs this weekend. One of them was Derek actually winning LSO. I top 4 to GT with them this weekend. Like, they're very clearly.
No, they won 4 this week, or 2 this weekend.
2 this weekend, yeah. I know they won LSO, and I know they won another one. I know Josh has won one with them, right? Like, they're very clearly still a powerful faction, but I think it's quite easy to write a bad Chaos Space Marine list.
Very much. People are still playing Deceptors.
Anthony's gonna have a go. I'm sure
that's a few months away. That's like a balanced slate away, so they might actually get good by then.
Or significantly worse, which I think would be funnier.
That would be the funnier. So rounding
Josh
up,
just has to nerf his own faction again.
It's just finding the weak points and making sure that those get amplified. Rounding out the bottom 5, we have Orcs, who had 88 players, a 4.2% meta representation, a 44.9% win rate, 1 event win with a giant asterisk next to it, and 5 top 4s for a 1.06 over rep.
While we're on the topic, do you want to touch the asterisks?
Yeah, a lot of people have been asking me about this. I was the head judge from a Reels perspective at Tacoma this weekend. It was the misplay that was identified was Gazgul Thraka being put in a battle wagon that had an art case. That's not something you can do. I identified it during the shadow round. The player in question was penalized at that moment, and then from there, he went on to win the shadow round game, and he was under my watchful eye for game 7 and 8 on stream, and no misplays were identified. So, at the very least, those games are as they are. It's basically all I can really say about the event. I'd rather focus on the players that had fun than that.
Yeah, I hear some fun was had in the shadow round by some players and less by others as they played unexploded ordnance to determine who would make top cut.
The shadow run was an unexploded ordnance Dawn of War with inspired leadership. And I'll buy you a beer at WTC if you can tell me what that does.
It's as long as you're outside your deployment zone, you have a 9-inch aura of +1 to battle shock tests. It might only be a 6-inch aura, but it's definitely while you're outside your deployment zone.
Who has the aura?
The Warlord.
All right, you're most of the way there. It's basically Chilling Reign. No one really pays attention to it.
I fucking do.
I've played against Tyranids enough to pay attention to it.
Oh yeah, and in that it's very helpful. But yes.
Notably, it is only battle shock tests. It does not apply to leadership tests, which means that when I played it as CSM, I didn't get all +1 to all my dark bag tests.
That is
I did have to double check it to be like, do I get bonus here? But no, sadly not.
Yeah, and I will shout out Donald Plummer, who's in the chat saying he had a great time in the shadow round. Boom, boom. Donald Plummer had the pleasure of playing against Chuck Arnett, who was playing Votend, who kept insisting to me that he had no place or that he did not belong in the shadow round. He then went on to beat Donald in that shadow round game and then lose in round 7. But shout out to both of them for playing just an absolutely stellar and hilarious game, because every single time I poked my head in to watch them, they were laughing and just having a great time. So apparently you can have fun playing on exploded ordnance in the shadow round. Just requires
Personally, I think it's a coward move to not have that mission be stalwarts and search and destroy. Just advance shooting the action for battle line and start 9 inches apart. Like that's what that mission should be. It should be the full chaos grenade.
So one of the things that we did discover as I was reading the mission to the players, someone pointed out that where the objectives are deployed, they start wholly within 12 of both players' deployment zones because Dawn of War got moved up 2 inches either way. So basically, if you don't move them at all, both players will score 24 on primary.
It's the prisoner's dilemma, dude.
Or if you go first and just keep punting them towards your opponent and they keep punting them back, you will score 60 on primary and they will score 24.
Yeah, that seems like a balanced mission.
Better hope that that you can table your opponents fast enough to be able to shove them in.
To be fair, if you just deny them all the secret mission points and if you just secret mission them and deny them secondaries, you'll still win. Hypercrypto P.
Maybe. The best way to deal with the secret mission is to punt all of the objectives into your opponent's zone, because that way they can't secret mission no man's land objectives.
Or you play against Hypercrypt, you've already maxed your primary, you kick one of them back into your deployment zone, so there's not one, not 3 ones that they can grab. So yeah, you can fuck with them in that. No,
Yep,
doesn't work. All right. Anything else interesting in the stats, Jeremy? What else is worth chatting
about? There's a couple interesting ones. Tau apparently are like truly perfectly balanced. They had 5.4% of the meta, 113 players, a 49.7% win rate, 2 event wins, 7 top 4s, and a 1.16 over rep. So Tau fine. And on either side of them, you have Black Templars, Grey Knights, Death Guard, and Custodes, all in the like 48 to 51% range. We have 8 factions, 4 on the top, 4 on the bottom, that are outside of the 45 to 55 range. So it means 18 are inside. So after that, seems pretty good. Let's talk WTC lists, because this is more interesting than stats.
Let's talk WTC lists. How do we want to structure this? I think there is probably a couple of ways we could do this. We could talk about, like, we could each pull out a couple of lists we find interesting, or we could try to do, pick a theme each, and then we all try to go with a list for the theme that we've seen, or we just talk about teams that we thought had interesting comps. I think there's a few different ways to do this. I think the easiest is probably just we each talk about a couple of lists we thought were interesting. But there's lots of approaches. There are unfortunately 320 lists. We're not going to cover all of them. There are a bunch of places that have covered more of these lists. I know 6++ just did their WTC list show where they covered about 12 lists. Takeo Commerce did a show yesterday where they covered a bunch of the Pool 1 seeds. So there is lots of coverage out there if you guys are looking for more. We also spoke about a few on the last show. And 4K and Fireside covered a bunch on the last show as well in a little bit less depth. But now that we have the list out, I'm sure there will be a million sources talking about them. I'm sure there's an Auspex Tactics video or 5 on the way already. So yeah, I think
it's not out already. He must be slacking.
Oh well, I assume he's got to record it, right? I'm going to take the lozenges in between every. I'm going to stop talking. Yeah, so let's probably just do it the easy way and just pick a couple of lists each that we think are super interesting from the pack. I'm going to grab it up. Jeremy, do you want to kick us off?
No, not really, but I will.
That's fair. Well, does anyone have one in mind to start us off then? Brian, is there any list that you think are particularly worth sharing out?
Yeah, I think.
Or do you want to do what we're playing? Because we already did that kind of last week, but we could touch on it again quickly.
Brian's playing what I'm playing.
I guess we can talk about that a little bit. Yeah, so I'm playing almost the exact same list that Jeremy is, if not the exact. I don't know if you had a better.
You have the new scoring package. I have the old scoring package because I preferred it, and I don't like Spawn because I think they're dumb models.
That's why you gotta just pick any model you want and then get it approved. Turns out it works 100% of the time. The times I've tried it. Yeah, I just it's very similar list. A couple small changes for spawns, or as I like to refer to them, little vortex beasts, and then a random goat shaman for some just kind of utility play. But generally, very, very similar list.
Magnus, 3 Beetles, Vortex Beasts, 2 Forge Fiends, Arcane Vortex Man, and some chaff is basically the gist, right?
Yeah, it's a fun list.
Yeah, and I'm playing Synaptic Nexus Tyranids. Core of my list is 2 Maliceptors, an Execrene, 3 Molochs, Hive Tyrant, and then a bunch of scoring bullshit. But obviously the fun spice in there is the triple Moloch in Synaptic Nexus, giving me that good old battle shocks in your turn, battle shocks in my turn, battle shocks in every phase. How dare you try to score points? You get a battle shock, you get a grenade, you get a battle shock.
I became sold on the Vortex Beast when I started killing Aspect Warrior squads in my movement phase. That's when I was like, this will work. I like this.
It's very funny when you roll the 6 into the 6 and the squad just disappears.
My favorite thing about the Vortex Beasts is because it's an aura, they don't stack, so you can't hit multiple units with 2. You can't hit a unit with 2 Vortex Beasts. You can only
I was sad about that when I learned it halfway through my testing.
It's fine.
Yeah, it ends up not being too big a deal, but it is.
Don't worry. After WTC, we'll get the aura tag removed from it because it's not actually an aura.
Which is that my Forge Fiends do -1 to. I don't know how much I got cut off there, but I have yet to remember that my Forge Fiends do suppress guys when I shoot them. I should probably remember that.
Someone's asked what the count of Mutalith Vortex Beast is, and I'm going to do a Control F for it, and we're going to see how many Mutalith. 90 Mutalith Vortex Beasts at the tournament. No, 45.
I got 25.
It'll be 25?
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot more than that. I have 45.
It's showing up 25 in the list doc that I have.
Not sure why. I got 45 showing up. There are like 24 between just you guys' lists. So that then makes me ask the question of I wonder how many there's got to be like exactly like a billion Deathwing Knights, right? Like across the 40 list, it's got to be 24.
Well, I know that there's only 17 Lamarties, which means that there are 3 Blood players that didn't take Lamarties, which
I do like there's 24 Vortex Beasts and 15 of those are in 5 people's lists.
Yeah, there is
yours, mine, Kier, Gaylord, and what was the last one thinking of? Kale?
Yeah.
96 instances of Inferno Pistol. Too many Inferno Pistols. All right, let's do some specific lists then. So I mentioned it already. Let's do Kevin Zollinger's Ironstorm list because he has got to be the only person that is still sticking with the faction. Well, he literally is. So Kevin Zollinger is playing for Austria. He is playing technically Imperial Fists. He has a Tech Marine with Adept of the Omnissiah, which is the blank enhancement, We have an Intercessor squad for some sticky objectives, 3 Assault Intercessor with jump packs, just an all-round very good data sheet, 3 Gladiator Reapers, 3 Predator Destructors, 3 Scout Squads, and 3 Vindicators. Just straight up, standard, I want free rerolls, and I want good, efficient Spaceman shooting. I think it's a very interesting choice because it obviously takes up your Spaceman slot for your team, but Kevin is... If anybody can be called the OG Ironstorm player, it is Kevin. He has been playing it for the longest of any person that I know of. He played it all the way back at Worlds last year, like in this kind of iteration, obviously with different vehicles at the time, but very much the same sort of general pattern. And he's a very, very accomplished player with the faction. He's won so many events with Ironstorm. He's probably rivaling Josh's Canoptic Court record for player with the most wins with an individual detachment of GT plus size events. So yeah, very, very interesting to see them go for that. Obviously, with it taking up the slot that would otherwise be filled with something like Blood Angels or Dark Angels, it does put a bit of pressure on Austria's comp, and they have some other interesting choices across them. So I think it will be very cool to see how they do. Austria are a team that, for example, has Chaos Demons and a very, very melee-heavy Eldar list and a few things like that definitely kind of incline me towards being like, all right, this is very much a comp that's been built around Ironstorm as one of its like linchpins, right? Rather than going with Blood Angels as the core of it. So I think it'll be really cool to see. And I think it's one of those lists that will catch people by surprise if they're not used to having played against Ironstorm because, they just forgot that damage rerolls are really good, maybe. Yeah. Any thoughts on that one, guys?
Yeah, I think it's still a good list. I think it could easily prove to be one of those ones which people abandoned too quickly because of the changes. It was obviously very powerful before. So, and as you pointed out, if anyone's going to do well with it, he is. So I'm very keen to see how he does.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep, fair. All right, Jeremy, what are we looking at?
All right, I've got a few, but I'm going to start with the fun one just because it's done by a friend of the show. We have Noah Badome, who is helping out working for Team Mexico, whose list title is Taos Told Me To. His list is Chaos Knights, and it is a Rampager, 4 Brigands, a Huntsman, 4 Carnivores, a single Beast of Nurgle, 2 units of 3 Nurglings, and Sloppity Bile Piper. And it's more just for the sheer chutzpah of taking that particular list on WTC trying to go, we're just going to run at you.
Well, the Sloppity Bile Piper is the official model of Team Scotland, as it does carry bagpipes into battle. So I have to salute Noah for his enlightened choice.
Yeah. Now, what does Sloppity do for anyone who can remember?
Makes people take battle shocks when within 6.
I think it's fight phase?
Something like that.
It's a command phase. Let's go.
It's like the same shitty rule the Broodlord has or the Patriarch has. So he's okay.
It's a ghetto Dante.
Well, yeah, but he's also only 55 points, so.
Yeah.
He gives his unit a buff that you'll never see, and at the start of the fight phase, everything excluding monsters and vehicles within 6 takes a battle shock test, which will be at -1 because of playing against Chaos Knights.
Yep.
So,
it's a very silly, it's a very straightforward list. I wish Noah the best of luck. He had a blast this weekend at Tacoma running World Leaders, where he played his 5th through 12th games with the list, or with the army period. He had messaged me the week before and went, what do I take? And I went, just take the World Leaders if you've been hobbying them.
Take your list, practice it. Come on, what are we doing?
He's playing for Team Mexico. He probably could have done that safely and no one would have noticed.
That's fair too. All right, Brian, what are we looking at? Who are we jumping to?
We've got to go to Olivier's list, right? Because that thing is peak 40K.
Yes.
It is so cool. His list is Black Templar, and he has a character package with Grimaldus, Helbrecht, a lieutenant with a combi weapon for some one-up action, and a chaplain. And then he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 20-man bricks of Primaris Crusaders, which is awesome, and then 2 5-man scout squads. This list is fantastic. I love it.
It's playing as Righteous Crusader, so it's got like surprising amount of flexibility, I would say. It's mostly going to take the Feel No Pain, but it definitely can flex into sustained hits, lethal hits, and a few other options. So
yeah,
very
the one enhancement it has does nothing unless you take the Feel No Pain vow.
Yes. But it's really good when you do take that Film of Pain value.
Mhm.
And then obviously, Grimaldus also hands out a Film of Pain. Helbrecht gives crit 5 to a squad, so when they pick when they use the stratagem to transition to a different oath, they get sustained hits or lethal hits, full rerolls with oath a moment, and they have that really annoying no fallback stratagem that is surprisingly frustrating, I think is the technical term.
Yeah.
I feel like no one's ever missed the 4-up roll against me when they've used it.
It's funny because the players, the local Black Devil players I play against, always fail it, so they've just stopped using it, but only against me.
That's fair. Yeah, I've experienced the frustration of just being like staring at a Black Templars unit with like an Ironstorm army and being like, I'd really like to shoot that squad, but unfortunately, that's not how this game works. So you put it in tank jail, you're just like charge it with all my tanks. You can't fall back now. You're desperate to escape. No, it's a super cool list from Olivier. France it's hilarious to me that Olivier is the guy that brought Sons of Sanguinius to the world, and he was like, done with that, completed it, mate, and moved on.
His job is done.
If he had just like real talk, okay, Olivier brought that to Pariah back in February. If he had never taken that list to Pariah, and Anthony and I hadn't both seen it, do you think Sons of Sanguinius pick up popularity?
Not to the same degree, but I think yes, still, because eventually players will find those things. It's not that weird of a thing.
Nobody was playing it.
No, but that was also because it had just been fixed at the end of January.
It had been a couple weeks, and
But
nobody was talking.
A couple weeks for a change like that, especially when the army had been like genuinely bad beforehand. Like the end of January into February saw such a massive upheaval in the meta with like Wraith Knights finally being addressed and that kind of thing. It was very much an element of, okay, maybe this is different. And so Blood Angels was definitely this is an index book that isn't very good.
Well after Wraith Knights, right? Wraith Knights was the November one, right? The September slate.
Yeah. What was in January then? The big thing.
What I thought was odd was that even after Pyra, I mean, you haven't really seen Blood Angels in a singles meta to the extent I would expect you to, right? It seems like it's only started
picking up recently.
Yeah,
the last 2 months is where they've really picked up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. Some of the other players were playing it before. It felt like I hadn't seen it anywhere before that, and then obviously it picked up after that. We were very enthusiastic about it on the show, and I think if Olivier hadn't brought it, I don't think it ever picks up to the same degree. Because
probably
the person that brought it to the world, right, or brought it to the like top level competitive world, right. But yeah, 100%, maybe it does. But yeah, I think it's very funny that he discovered it and abandoned it. It's quite very, very interesting.
That could very well be that this is the role that his team needed out of him, and BA definitely doesn't serve the same need as 100 Primaris Crusaders.
Yeah, that's also very fair. Right, I am going to shout out the Spanish Tyranids list because it makes me happy. Even though I don't think it's a great list, I respect the chutzpah to bring it anyway. As I scroll through, because I unfortunately don't remember his name.
It's Marco Esteban.
There we go. I got it.
He's
I
playing Vanguard Onslaught.
So we have Marco Esteban for Spain playing Vanguard Onslaught Tyranids. We have a triple Broodlord, a Neuro Tyrant, a Winged Hive Tyrant, a Winged Tyranid Prime, 10 Gargoyles, a Biovore, because of course you have a Biovore. Anybody who was saying you could cut the Biovore was wrong. 3x10 Gene Stealers, 3 Lictors, 2 Neurolictors, a squad of Raveners, a 6 of Tyranid Warriors with melee bioweapons, and 3 squads of 3 Von Ryan's Leapers. This is all gas, no breaks, nothing damage 2, damage 1 the army.
Who cares about half damage or -1 damage when you're all damage 1?
It's so much pressure. Gene Stealers are, they're Space Marine pointed models that are fast, right? They're 2 wounds each, which means they're fairly durable for as far as chaff goes. But in the sense they are also bricks that hit really hard. They have real ones to hit and wound. They have devastating wounds. They go really fast. They don't have to charge. They fall back and charge. They have a lone up stratagem and reactive moves. And if you're not prepared for that, you get run down by a bunch of Gene Stealers.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. And it's not no damage too, because the Brute Lord's melee is damage too.
You are correct. There is the Neuro Tyrant's shooting attack, the Winged Hive Tyrant's 10 attacks in melee, the Winged Tyranid Prime, the Lictors, and the Brute Lords. And that is all the damage to in the list. Every other data sheet is only damage 1, which is to say that there are 9 models with damage 2 in the list.
Solid. All right. My next one is a longtime WTC veteran, so he must know what he's doing. This is Matt Morosoli from Team Australia, who is running Chaos Space Marines and Renegade Raiders. His list title is "Last year I crashed an e-scooter. This year I'm more into bikes."
And I will quickly, before you jump into it, shout out their Thousand Suns players list, which is solely stole all my rubrics. So,
but he had some leftover Terminators. That's Jeremy Martino, right?
Yes.
Yeah. He apparently submitted the same list to War Masters, which is unusual for Australia. And of course, in true fashion, Matt Morosoli's YouTube link, which is now necessary in list titles or in list links, is an electric scooter fail and crash compilation video. That is 5 minutes of people just crashing electric scooters. So, but his list is Renegade Raiders. He has a Lord with Dread Reaver. He has a Lord with Despot's Claim. He has Fabius Bile, who is his Warlord. He has a unit of Cultists, two small units of Legionaries, 2 Rhinos, a unit of Accursed Cultists, 3x6 Chaos Bikers with all the trimmings, a big old 10-man brick of Chosen, another big old 10-man brick of Chosen, and then 3 5-man units of rubrics. So he has more rubrics than myself and Brian combined.
That's a lot of stuff.
That's a lot of bikes. That's 18 Chaos bikes. I don't know if it's good, but it's a lot of, I don't know what the footprint of that actually is.
I'm going to assume that Soli has played it enough to know that he can hide enough of it that it doesn't matter.
It's also just the list in general is such a departure from a lot of other Raiders lists, which tends to just be fast gun good.
I mean, it's not like this list isn't also fast gun good. It's just different fast gun, which I have a lot of respect for.
There's no Vindicators, there's no Predators, there's none of that. It's just, hey, what if this?
Yeah, it's a very, because it's not even they're necessarily that much cheaper, right? If you were to look at this and be like, those 3 Chaos Bikers are 3 Predators points cost, the 2 Chosen are the points cost very roughly of a Vindicator and a Chaff unit, right? It's still 5 big hitty units, right?
You could swap those 5 units for the more standard triple Predator or triple Vindicator variant.
Yeah, but what you gain as a benefit is the ability to go through walls, the ability to hide much easier, better degradation generally as well, right?
And some actual melee.
And melee, which is obviously the big difference. I think Renegade Raiders is an attachment that really benefits you playing better than your opponent, because so much of it is centered around that objective-based gameplay, where if you can force your opponent onto the objectives, you can do a lot of cool stuff. And if you can't, or you're not able to leverage your resources to make your opponent do that, the army can feel a little bit flat-footed sometimes. And Soli is an incredibly good chaos player, an incredibly good player in general, who will have put a ton of reps into this and will know how to make you interact with the game the way he wants you to, because there's no way you've repped into this list, right? There's no way you've played anything like this before. So I think it's going to be really cool to see Soli play it, and I'm very much looking forward to that. Plus, he's just a good lad, and he's in chat right now, so I have to beef him up a bit.
Oh yeah, Soli is a hell of a gem. So I'm glad that he's making it out this year. And
for sure.
Yeah, he kind of fits the theme with the rest of the Australia list of being a little out there as usual.
Yeah.
All right, Brian, what we got next?
I think that Chris Radford's Grey Knight list for England is actually quite interesting. It's probably what I think.
It's interesting for the lack of what it has, right?
Yeah. So there's a distinct lack of any Dread Knights in the list whatsoever, and he's decided to go with Grey Knights Rhinos instead. But the full list is 2 Brotherhood Librarians, Castell and Crow, 10-man Terminator Squad, 2 5-man strikes, the Rhino I mentioned, 3 Interceptor Squads, 2 5-man Purgation Squads with Incinerators, and then a 10-man Purifying Squad with Incinerators.
So what's the title of his list?
The title of his list is Josh, Why Did You Nerf Dread Knights? So it's just a really cool list. I think it's really different than anything we've kind of seen from most of the direction that people have gone with Grey Knights. You still have a couple elements which are common, in the form of the Librarian and the Terminator squad, some of the Inceptors and stuff. But you have some really cool tools here, which I think it's going to be really interesting to see how they play on the board and fit in nicely. Like what role this army is trying to serve.
Yeah, I mean, Grey Knights are one of those armies that, along with Hypercrypt, is just really, really goddamn good at doing secret missions as well, right? So,
nothing better than a teleporting battle line unit.
Certainly is nothing better than a 3-inch
deep strike battle line unit. Deep strike onto your home objective.
Yeah, are you going to stop those interceptors getting on Broken Wall when they 3-inch deep strike and fire and fade as well? Like, come on, what are we doing?
Please no. James Workshop, who wins the list name meta? I'm going to say right now, I think that we need to compile all the list names to figure that out. And
somebody has definitely done compile all of the YouTube videos and made a playlist that they put in the StatCheck Discord. So if you want to check that out, patreon.com/StatCheck. No, although I would recommend watching the video that I put on my playlist. It is not something I can put on the show, but it is great fun, and you should incorporate it into your everyday vocabulary.
Oh, mine's just Queen, some kind of magic. So.
Oh no, mine's so much worse than that. All right, let's have a look at the next team's list. I am mentally and emotionally blanking on anything even vaguely interesting, but I'm going to.
Let's do one more each. I've got one in the pocket.
I have one. If you want to look up anyway. I'm going to do Tanker from Team France's Chaos Space Marine list. So it's Matt Bonnet. He is playing for France. He's also playing Renegade Raiders, but a very, very different direction to what we just will go with Matt. We have 3 Dark Communes, one with Mark of the Hound, which is the Scout enhancement. We have a Master of Execution Dread Reaver, which is the reroll enhancement. We have Cypher. We have 2 Cultist Mobs. We have 4x5 Legionnaires with the standard stuff on a las cannon. We have 3x16 Accursed Cultists, 5 Possessed, a Predator Destructor, another Predator Destructor, 2 Chaos Rhinos, and 3 Nurglings.
It's a lot of shit running at you.
Renegade Raiders does a lot for Accursed Cultists. Being able to have a scope with Scout, for starters, gets them up the board very quickly, and the fallback in your turn stratagem is just messed up on a unit with Blood Surge abilities, as well as the ability to advance and charge them. Have you ever had something get charged, lose that thing, and then have them fall back from the thing they tagged, surround it, so that you can't desperate escape, but also they can Blood Surge into you the second you shoot them?
Stop it. Do not want.
Yeah, it's great fun. I got to watch a little bit of this play in person. It's a super, super cool list. Very, very cool. I know from speaking to France a little bit that this Matt is traditionally their Sisters player, and they believe that this was better than Sisters for their composition, and I am really, really excited to see how well it performs at the event. Matt's a really good player who's been playing out of Bulgaria for a while, so it's super cool to see him involved in the France roster as well. It's one of the lists that just, it tickles all the right brain juices of being like, this is super cool. It's also a thing that I would love to play after WTC because it's horde bullshit with good shooting, very cool MSU combat elements. It's still got 2 Legionnaire Rhinos, right? Those are just competent, good units, especially in Renegade Raiders.
And the Dark Commune with the Accursed Cultists is just an evergreen unit to chew through. Yeah,
it does. Notably, this list does almost give up Call the Horde. It gives up a 15 on it, but at the point where you've lost the 3 Accursed Cultist squads, compellingly, the game is probably over anyway. So I don't think it's too big a deal. But I am a little reticent on it being 25 Assassination, 15 Call the Horde. So there's a fairly comfortable 35 points there if you want to go that route.
It's only 20 on Assassinate.
No, it's Assassination. Yeah, so 20 on Assassination.
Yeah, so you could go for the 20 and 15, but hide one commune with a character back and just sit it on your home, and suddenly you denied your opponent.
It's a lot of points down. Yeah, but it feels like if you're playing against a list that can pressure you that way and just complete pure damage I put into you, it might be a little bit stressful there. But it's the kind of list that I'm really tempted to put on the table after WTC. It just looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, for definitely. This is very much the fast pistol go fast.
All right, Jeremy, take us away. What's the next one?
All right, last one is I'm going to shout out William Furman from Team Switzerland. This man has a habit of ruining Canada's meta for a little while after WTC because I have a habit of grabbing his lists from Switzerland and pulling them over. He had the 2 big 7 little knight list back in 22 that I took to Capital City Bloodbath and other things. So I always keep an eye on him. He tends to be all over the place, but lately he's been playing a lot of Leagues of Voten, and that's what he's on here. So he's on Voten, and his list title is I Am Free. As to what that is a reference to, I'm not entirely sure, but I'm very curious.
His list in pairings. It's completely free.
Ow. So he's playing Leagues of Votan. He's got a single Einherjar champion with a mass hammer as his warlord. He then
boggles
has
my mind that guy is 60 points, by the way. What a data sheet for 60 points.
That data sheet is wild for 60 points. I love it. He does not have any enhancements in his list. He has 2 units of Hearthkin Warriors with all the gubbins. He has taken my beloved Magna Rail rifle, and he has swapped out the old assault weapon for the L7 missile launcher because it's just better because assault doesn't matter anymore for doing actions. And then he has 4 Sagittars, which he's going to shove 2 of those in, and he's going to shove the 2 units of Berserks that are in his list with mauls and grenade launchers into the other 2 Sagittars. He then has a big old brick of Einherjar Hearthguard with the Vulcanites, so no plasma, but since he doesn't have Grim Demeanor, it makes sense because he can't ignore mods, so that's usually when you'll take the plasma. He then has 663 bikes with everything on them, and a unit of 10 Jaegers to, because that unit at 80 points is fair and balanced.
I can't believe there are Votan players that don't have them.
I think every Votan list should start with 1, ideally 2. At 80 points for that unit, it's just so good.
I feel like I'm going mad, but Germany don't have it in their Votan list, I want to say.
I wouldn't be surprised. It might be a possibility of some of them being concerned about being able to get approval because those units are impossible to find right
Germany
now.
don't have any in their Votan list, which I thought was super interesting.
So for anyone who's unfamiliar with Votan, they got this unit from Kill Team Box recently. It had rules released. The unit has infiltrates, or infiltrators, which is a huge impact on Votan when you want to play like a scouting pressure force, which this list very much does with 4 Sagittars and 15 bikes, all of which scout 6 to 9 inches. And the worst thing that would happen is you get paired into someone with infiltrators themselves. They drop a line of Nurglings or a line of scouts and say, you don't leave your deployment zone with your scout move. You are going to put much less pressure on me early game. Now with the infiltrators and the Jaegers, with there being 80 points for a 10-man, you can string. If you win that deployment drop off, then you can actually really put that pressure on, and it's quite scary for some armies. And if you lose it, you still have one side of the board that you can usually push down.
Yeah, it's kind of insane because like the problem with Votan before was that your opponent would always do their infiltrators last, right? So they would see where all your Sagittars are, and you would go, okay, cool, I'm going to block the most important things and pressure them in. So you'd have to spread your stuff out. You would lose a little bit of your Alpha Strike because you would have to commit to being like so many different places on the board because you couldn't like convincingly pressure one side. Where now, even if you lose the roll off and your opponent commits a side, you just go on the other side now. You're like, all right, cool. You have to put them down as your first drop. Otherwise, I block all the space with my Jaegers, and now you don't block anything for them, right? So unless you have something insane like a 20-man infiltrating squad, like some army like Deceptors could do, right? For example, that would be a thing that would potentially still stop you, but that's about it, right? And
but in a team's environment, you can kind of say that's the one thing I can't pair into now, whereas now you're much more prepared as an all-around other attacker defender to go, look, that doesn't concern me anymore, or it concerns me considerably less than it did before.
Yeah, I can't believe nobody brought Deceptors as a Votan counter, to be honest. Like, I think we all should have expected the 18 Votan lists at this tournament. I actually think I will say that was the surprise of the pack for me, was that there were 18 Votan lists.
The only reason we didn't take Votan was I was on T-Suns for Canada, because I would have taken Votan otherwise, but we didn't have anyone else who knew T-Suns, and I rated T-Suns higher than Votan.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable decision to make. All right, Brian,
so.
take us away with your third list.
So I'm gonna have to go with the Polish Necron list.
Oh God, that list.
Gitto is bringing a Gitto special. He really wanted to lean into the lore this time, and so decided to take 9 characters and make sure he could have a long backstory for each. But it's Awakened Dynasty with Chronomancer, with the Veil, Caesarus, Emotech, Locust Lord, Psychomancer, Scorpec Lord, with the Dermal Bond, which I think is at the
Philipine.
Yeah. It makes him a mini Xer. It's
mini Caesarus, yeah. And a Technomancer with the Nether Realm Casket. Now, I don't even know what that thing does, but it sounds good.
Stealth over 12.
That's less interesting, but it's still cool. And you have 10 Immortals with Gauss Blasters, Panoptic Reanimator, 6 Wraiths, 2 Cryptothralls, 2 Solo Destroyers, and 3 units of Heavy Destroyers, clearly one of which was forced to become anti-tank after the fact, because it's in the middle, as Anthony pointed out at one point, I think. And then a Triarch Stalker, which I had to look up because I didn't know what that model was. Overall, it's
Triarch
really cool.
give again? It's the like spindly
It's the Crab Walker. Yep, it's toughness 8, 12 wounds, 4 vulnerable save. It's got 4 attacks at 7, 1, 3 in melee, which is a hilarious profile. And generally, it runs a 24-inch range gun, which has 6 shots at 9/2 lethal hits, and it strips cover, and it has Scout 8.
because I remember previous editions it was reroll 1s to anything it hit.
Yeah, we were playing it on our hypercrypt list to give the list something to do on turn 1. It's just I've gone first as hypercrypt. I guess I will scout this thing forward and pressure you. So
Yeah, I mean, it's really.
It does have Scout 8, which is kind of cute.
Yeah, it's a pretty fast scout. It's also a hilariously spindly model, which means it's really good at like sliding into gaps and things like that to like stand on an objective that you weren't expecting and things like that. Or poking its leg through a WTC ruin and like coming out the other side and being like, "I can see you," and then shooting you.
Yeah,
I will shout out as well in this list. Sorry, before you jump in, Brian. The Technomancer with Netherrealm Casket and the Cryptothrall squad does create the tankiest squad of wraiths in the game. That unit is obnoxiously hard to kill. It is stealth over 12. It is always in cover. It has 2 Cryptothralls for additional Feel No Pain models, and it still has the Feel No Pain on top of that. The addition of the Cryptothralls takes it from Lamarty's and Lamarty's Lance Lethal from killing it to not killing it, which is a big deal in an army that has a Reanimator kicking around.
Yeah, just a little annoying to kill.
Just a little difficult.
And every single one of those characters will stand back up at some point during the game.
Mm-hmm. So it's
72
Assassinate, and you're still not going to take Fixed against it. So that's cool.
Could you pick Fixed Assassinate twice, but you have to kill a second set of characters? Would you take it?
Against this for sure.
Did you just remove the cap on Fixed and say, I'm going to take Fixed Assassinate and nothing else?
Yeah. But no, it's a really cool list. It's a different take on.
Well, it's now just stealth. It does not give the cover thing. Okay, cool.
But I mean, it's still going to make them incredibly tanky, right? So it's just a different take on Necrons in general. You're not seeing much Awakened Dynasty, and then this is a different take within that subspace. So it's very cool.
Yeah, it's a very. There's a lot of lists this year that look like they are this person's comfort list that they have repped to extreme levels, right? It's just this person is a faction expert at their faction. They're playing a list that they have prepped, that they know the job for, and that you do not. And you are not going to figure it out before WTC to the same level that they have. And we're going to see how that run comes out in the ROB at the tournament. And I think that's a really, really cool place for WTC to be, where it's about mastery and expectations and preparation, not about who, found the 8 best lists before the tournament because the rule set was super new. Cool. Is there anything else we want to shout out? I know we did a lot of coverage from like a bunch of Pool 1 teams there, but we did cover a few other ones. I'm trying to remember if there's anything else that really stood out to me as being super cool. There is the guy on the Singapore Talon team that's playing the Talons of the Emperor with triple Rhinos and a Land Raider. Love that guy. Shout out to the Welsh Blood Angels list that has no Death Company. No Death Company. Yeah, I don't understand it either, and I'm choosing not to. It's because he's playing like 30 Vanguard veterans, I think, but 25 Vanguard veterans. But
I hate Vanguard vets so much, and I couldn't find anything better to replace my last unit with. I kept trying desperately. What else want to play on?
I will shout out Australia for yet another weird list that I'm really trying to understand still, which is their World Eaters list.
Like it's just 30 idiots with a Feel No Pain and Fight on Death standing behind walls on primary.
But here's the thing: it's okay. So for anyone who hasn't, I'm gonna read through this. It is World Leaders, Berserkers, Warband, obviously, Karn, 10 Jackals, 10 Jackals, 10 Jackals, 10 Berserkers, 5 Berserkers, a single Rhino, 2 units of 3 8-bound, and then 30 World Eater Terminators. I don't know if anyone's ever looked at that data sheet. That data sheet is not good. But
maybe we've all been Anthony pilled.
Yeah, but not even Invocatus for the Scout on the Terminators. Like
you've all been Anthony pilled.
I also want to play against this list because it would be hilarious for my 3 Sorks to go. You move 3 inches. You move 3
Also, for
inches.
chat, this is an incredibly faded Canada jersey.
Yep, that's one of the old school ETC Canada jerseys.
I don't know, man. I'm pretty sure it's an England jersey.
This is from
no, it says Canada Man on the back.
It's a 2018 Canada jersey from Ben Wolstenholme, who was an English player who had Canadian ancestry, who's since moved to Canada. So no, Canada shirt. And my England shirt's in the cupboard, and it's blue. Yeah, that World Leaders list looks like it really wants Invictus, says Tim. Yeah. Okay, I think I have one last question I want to move on. What list from this pack do you think is most likely to make a splash in the singles meta game after the tournament? Outside of your own, because I feel like you're both going to just keep playing that in singles after this. But
I was told I can't play it at War Masters. I was very upset.
Probably Dark Angels. I think the Dark Angels are going to see a big resurgence.
Is it seeing a resurgence though? Because they're actually like really on the upswing right now. Like Gladius Dark Angels has like a 57% win rate the last 3 weeks.
That's fair.
Yeah, like this is something that we picked up on slightly earlier, but the community also gravitated towards real quickly with the changes to Inner Circle Companions and Deathwing.
It was fairly obvious when Deathwing Knights got better that people were going to look at the really good data sheet again.
Yeah. Well, the more fun part is the Inner Circle Companions because those models are gorgeous.
Yeah, but we've already seen players doing really well at the UK with them, really well at one of the UKTC majors and stuff like that with them like a couple of weeks ago already, right? So I don't think it's
that could also be variations of the Accursed Cultist builds. I think we're seeing a couple different cool builds here. I think that's kind of the direction that I would expect CSM to move towards. And it'd be cool to see, which ones kind of latch on and people tend to play.
I also wouldn't be surprised if we saw something like the French or Nassim's guard lists show up, right? The 18 Bogrins plus some core of shooting. France have it with double Rogadorn, Nas has it with tank commanders. I could see either of those variants.
Is that such a big departure from where they were before?
No, but I think there's been a bit of faction abandonment, and I think that people might, if it does even reasonably well, WTC people will be like, all right, cool, that's the direction we take now. And if it doesn't do well, then
and like a quarter of the teams took guard, so there's definitely some variety in there, and definitely some, there's definitely gas in that index still.
Oh yeah, and then
I would actually say,
sorry, go for it.
Poland's AdMech list,
Imperial Eldar,
yeah, basically Imperial. Like you look at that list, and you go, how does this work? And then you start throwing it on the table, you go, that's a problem. This thing is so annoying to deal with.
So much stuff. Why is it all fired, fade, and reactive moving? Stop it. Why is it all stealthed? Why can't I hit
stealth
you?
is the annoying part.
It's a frustrating list, yeah. The last one that's worth, do we think Germany's penitent host list is real or not?
No. Like maybe in Germany it is, but shall we go through what their list is, since theirs is actually a fairly unique?
It is one of 2 non-Bringers of Flame lists in the tournament, the other being Canada's Halobards, which is basically a Bringers of Flame list but by a different detachment. We have a Canoness, 3 Ministorum Priests, a Palatine, Morvenval, the Triumph, 23 Arcoflagellants, 25 Repentia, a Sister Novitiate Squad, a Mortifier, 3 Paragons, and 2 Rhinos. I didn't know you could write such a list that didn't have castigators in it. I'm not going to lie.
I guess this is very much a who need fast gun when have fast punch.
That is true.
And yes, Tim does raise a point. No one wants to play that many Flyboys. Our local AdMech player who thought he had everything realized that he was still missing 10 Skystalkers to be able to run that list.
Well, Poland were cutting it out of paper and putting it on bases so they could play with it without breaking models. So.
We tried to get them to submit it to model people submit.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I want to play without breaking my models. Can I please use these? Yeah, there are so many cool lists at this tournament. If you haven't had a chance to read it yet, go and have a read of the document. Flick through, just pick some teams that you think are interesting. I promise you, whatever team you pick, there is something in there that is cool, regardless of whether it's a pull 1 seed, a pull 4 seed, or anything in between.
Super different lists.
Yeah, I am going to fling it up on the screen now, and it's also in chat for anybody who wants to see it once this sends through. At least it doesn't cost 2 mortgage payments to play anymore. I mean, it's still
now it's like 1.5 mortgage payments.
Yeah, so that's the link to the list there. If you click that through, otherwise you can also just find it on the WorldTeamChampionship.com website. You want to check it out. Literally every team you pick, there is something cool, innovative, and there is a player in there who is worth your attention, regardless of whatever faction you play. Unless you play GSC, in which case I'm so sorry. There is nobody for
Well,
you.
we talked about GSC at the beginning of the episode when we did the stats. The GSC Codex is performing about as well as their detachment rule is written.
Yeah, I love that you can rapid ingress out of a blip for some reason now. What a cool rule.
Only in WTC, but yes.
I mean, it doesn't not work in GW either, right? The way it's written, GW always rules is written this stuff, don't they? Or do you want to give us an official GW ruling right now, Jeremy?
No, I don't do official GW rulings.
Oh, there
if you
you
want
go
official
then, so-
GW rulings, you send an email to US Events List Submissions at gwplc.com.
Look, GSC are getting everything they deserve.
That is also probably true. I really just don't want to.
I am glad that I will not have to figure out how many GSC models I need to borrow from friends for Capital City Bloodbath this year.
That's fair. All right, let's do the plugs in speedrun mode because we're not doing the long versions anymore. Thank you so much, everybody, for being with us so far for episode 101 of Stat Check. This is WTC List and Found. So we've just run through a bunch of the WTC lists. If you're enjoying the show and you're in a position to support us, please check us out at patreon.com/statcheck. $5 a month gets you access to our Discord community where you can interact with a bunch of incredible human beings and also Brian, who is in there reasonably frequently. You can also do things like play in the Vibe Check League, get access to our Red Dragon discount code, and a bunch of other stuff like that, as well as harassing Jeremy for judge rulings basically any time of day because he's probably awake. It's Jeremy. What else does he do with his time? Otherwise, you can check out youtube.com/statcheck for all the other shows on our network, like End of the Matrix, XM1, Take All Comers, Champions of 40K, and I think that's all of them. That's probably all of them. And ourselves. And if you could drop a like, a comment, subscription, chat on the YouTube video, all that good stuff that helps us out. You know it, you love it, you hate hearing about it every week, but we have to say it because otherwise nobody does it. Please do check that out. Please check out all our sponsors. They are all listed below, but you can check out red-dragon.ca, Whale and Tutani, StatCheck on Etsy, and J15 Games, all of which have various relevant discount codes, which can be found in the description, and Red Dragons can be found in our Patreon. All those guys are super wonderful. Thank you so much to all of them for supporting us and helping us continue to bring you the show. I recently got my StatCheck tarot card sleeves from our supplier in the UK. They're on sale now through the Red Dragon website. They are fantastically cool. And I have like a spare half a deck to give away at some point. So yeah, you can get a deck box with them. They're glorious. I felt very powerful shuffling them up at the weekend. Strongly recommend you check those out on the StatCheck website, on the Red Dragon website if you can. Lastly, you can check out stat-check.com/coaching if you'd like to hear from either myself, Jeremy, Typhus, Lucas, Nick Olsen Johnson, or Tyler. Drop us an email at coaching@stat-check.com or just send us a message on Discord or anything like that, and we'd be more than happy to get back to you. Right now, I think it's a busy period for a lot of people with prepping up for WTC, but if you're coming into the post-WTC season, whether you're going to Champions Cup, LGT, LVO, or you just want to improve for getting better in your games with your friends, drop us a message and we'd love to help you out, whether it's for a one-off or for some long-term coaching. I think that's everything I have to plug. Nothing comes to mind. Let's move on to the show questions. And as always, if you want to hear your show question get right out on the show, you can either super chat us in the YouTube or you can go into the show question thread on Discord every week where we will guarantee to ask your question as long as it's not really stupid. So speaking of which, Jeremy, do you want to take us away with the first question?
Yeah. Alrighty. So first question we have from Luke G. With the confirmation of Codex Imperial agents, which armies you think will get the biggest changes for being able to add Death Watch Sisters, Grey Knights, etc. into them?
It's probably Knights, right?
Probably.
Knights or Custodies tend to be the ones that benefit the most from like cheap units. Like right now, agents units are like the base GK and Grey Knights units and all that kind of thing, and Custodies units are pretty solid, like Prosecutors and Witch Seekers, but more options is always good for armies like that. I could see Immolator plus Battle Sisters being pretty good. Right now, the Immolator's wording is that anything that shoots after it gets ignore cover, which is pretty nasty as well, especially for Imperial Knights. I know things like Helverins really benefit from ignoring cover with their +1 AP. So
yeah,
I think
those
are the ones that I would expect to see.
Yeah, that's about it. Like, I could see maybe... No, Marines wouldn't benefit a ton from that because they already have access to pretty much anything that those have offered to. What I want to see is what they do to Assassins.
I could definitely see Marines benefiting because Marines have this really awkward breakpoint where they have nothing in the below 50 point range. So it's very hard to fill out your last attachment slots a lot of the time. especially if you don't want to add enhancements or you've already added your maximum, because the cheapest unit for Space Marines is the Blade Guard Ancient at 50 points. So if there's anything interesting in like the 30-point range, or like maybe slightly more expensive in like the 100-point range where you can cut a scout squad for it, I could see that could be fairly reasonable. Things like the Callous Assassin fit pretty well in that slot right now. So I would expect to see something in that margin potentially.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. I'm gonna skip over a couple questions we already covered, like interesting lists and whatnot. We just talked about that, but is anyone else suffering from the whiplash of 3 codexes in a month, followed by nothing for 3 months? What would you like to see next? I think for me, the part of it this kind of makes me feel a little weird is because we had the like big AOS release last month, but it's still really quiet. Like, I kind of wish that we would see something like a codex roadmap. Like, they've now at least made it clear that Imperial Agents is coming soon, but what's after that?
Imperial Agents was on the previous roadmap. It was just the hidden codex, right? So
yeah, it was the hidden codex that was supposed to come out this summer, which if it comes out next month, which it seems like it will, that finishes off summer. But what's fall for them? And
so
not
we're
having
like a year in, we have like what, 8 books now, plus
more than that. We have Space Marines, Tyranids, Admech, Necrons, Dark Angels,
Orcs,
Sisters, Custodes, Tau,
Chaos
GSC, Chaos Space Marines. So 11, 10 if you just count core. So we're already halfway through the core of 21 books.
Yeah, but that means we're still another year away from being done, right? So,
which then means we have a year until the edition kicks over. So if we actually do have everything released by this time next year, that feels pretty good.
Yeah, I reckon it would be cool if we had one WTC with all the books. I think that would be good to see.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Obviously, the last one of 9th edition, we didn't have Chaos Space Marines out for it.
Yes, because I distinctly remember Anthony having feelings about that.
Tough luck.
All right, Officer Ben of the Vegas 501st asked Pop Tarts or toaster strudels.
Never tried a toaster strudel, so
they're pretty good. They're a flakier version of a Pop Tart if you had to simplify it.
Both sound pretty good. I like a Pop Tart. They're very Moorish, but
they're not both very good. They're both very mediocre. But Pop Tart's more mediocre than toasted strudels.
Fair. Look, for something that you get, and I definitely had Pop Tarts earlier today. For something that you get wrapped in foil that is fairly cheap, they're fine.
Here's a question: Do you put them in the toaster or not? Pop Tarts.
It depends on how much energy I have, but generally yes, because I do like them being a little crispier.
50-50.
Toaster strudels, you 100% put in the toaster.
What's on the name? You have to.
Yeah. And then you also make sure when you're putting them in the toaster that you put the little icing packets on top of the toaster for the second half, because that way the icing is nice and warm.
For the second half?
Too much.
Just like halfway through, it's down. Like you put the toaster down, and then like 30 seconds later, you put them on top, so that they don't melt and then go into it.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Isaac T asks, I went 7-1 at Tacoma, my best ever tournament performance, which I'm really happy with. However, I am still missing out on top tables and being able to win 2-day events. What's the best way for me to improve besides just play more?
Really making the transition from doing well at tournaments to like winning tournaments is consistency. It just becomes you need to iron out what is causing you that last loss for you, and like the more and more you can move that loss later into the tournament and to being against better players, the more you will continue to get good reps. So really, it's kind of taking it from being going 4-1 the easy way, which is losing round 1 or 2, to going 4-1 the hard way, which is losing round 5. And then once you get to there and you're playing the round 5s more consistently, you'll identify the issues that you're having in the specific tough games more, because the tough games are happening against better players. And then you get to look at the things that are going wrong for you and then either try to address them. So I think the real answer is to sit down and look at what caused your loss, outside of any extenuating factors, like things that you did that resulted in that loss, whether it's on the table stuff or off the table stuff. Like it could have been bringing a list that wasn't prepared for a certain matchup or anything like that, or it could be I made some mistakes in my go turn, or I made some mistakes here and there, or my deployment was bad, right? Whatever that is, you get to look at that and you get to go, okay, next time I fix that, and then you play that game, and hopefully next time you lose for a different reason, or you don't lose, and then you keep doing that until losing becomes a rarity, and then you start winning tournaments. Or you get lucky on the way through and you get one before you're ready, and you keep going from there, which is great too, and then you get to ride the momentum.
I think it's also important to be able to separate variance impacting the game from the decisions that put you in a situation where variance did impact the game, right? I mean, anytime
Yep.
in a moment, it's always very easy to be like, oh, well, I failed this critical roll or this charge, or I low rolled on my saves here. But usually there's a series of decisions you took which could have been done better, which would have put you less vulnerable to that kind of a swing on the dice. It's not always going to be true, but usually I found, at least when evaluating my own play, in the moment it might feel like the dice are the reason why something happened. But if you take a look back, you can identify 4, 5, 6 different ways where you could have done something better to make it so you were never in that situation to begin with.
Yep.
Or sometimes you just got to take a risk, and that's
yes, but you have to identify that is a risk and what the consequences of taking that risk is. In singles play, you're less likely to take those if you know that taking the risk will lose you the game. But if you're already going to lose the game anyways, then you go for it. No, it's something that I talk to a lot of people about play bringers of Flame Sisters. Wow, that's harder to say fast than I expected. No, it's something I talk to a lot of players about. Understanding when variants had a genuine impact, or when they put themselves in a place where variants can have an impact. You get diced every now and then, but if you say you lost all 8 of your games at Worlds because you got diced, you didn't lose all of your games at Worlds because you got diced.
And even in scenarios where you do get diced, right? There's always going to be, every game, even the ones you win, have lessons of how you could have played it better, right? So, yep. Always ask your opponents, what do you think I could have done better? Is there a way I should approach this differently? And maybe if you absolutely curb stomp your opponent, give them a minute and then ask the question. but still, it's like there's always going to be something which can be done better, and especially in the games against people that are really good players, asking those questions can be really valuable. Try and be insightful and try and learn.
If I can also offer up one last thing before we move on from this one, don't ask what you could have done better, because people are. What I will say, for people who have just lost, they don't like being like, oh yeah, you could have beat me harder. They generally don't like answering that question. And for people who've just beaten you, a lot of people can be very protective of their win, and they're like, yeah, I don't really feel there was much you could have done, blah blah blah. I feel like you played that word, blah, blah, because they either haven't internalized that there were things that you could have done, and they think that they've won the game off purely their decision making, which is fair enough. Like, everybody wants to feel like they won the game because they played better. Ask them what they were worried you were going to do, or what they were scared you were going to do, or what opportunities that you missed. Right? Just rephrase it in a way that gets them like thinking about purely what you're doing, not what you could have done to interact with them, but get them to think about it from their perspective, right? Of, oh, I was really worried that you were going to do this and this, and then you didn't do it, so I felt like I could do it, right? And people will give you more information when you go down that route of questioning with them, because you feel less protective when it's, oh yeah, you missed this opportunity, right? Like they feel smart because they accounted for the thing you were going to do that you didn't do, and things like that, right? And it helps you like get into that question in a different way while still getting the information out, and it's still basically the same question. It just, people don't tend to be defensive about it when you do that. You hear a lot of people just at tournaments going, oh, what do you think I could have done better? And then people are just like, oh yeah, I'm not really sure there's much you could do, I thought you played that pretty well. And then you never really get anything out of that. Like, you get a bit, but you don't get that much dialogue.
Makes sense. Yep. All right, next we have this is a longer question, but I condensed it down. What do you say to all of the Deathwatch players out there who own thousands of points of Deathwatch?
Read the article again. It said you can play Deathwatch still. Like, I'm pretty sure in the article it supposed that there is still a way to play pure Deathwatch, right? So
yeah, I guess it depends on what units are still left for them. Like, if all of the current like Primaris mixed units go away, then that could hurt a lot. But also then like play regular Marines and say they're guys that returned from the Deathwatch. Or if a whole bunch of stuff gets Legends first time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the closest thing I've had to it was playing Warhammer Fantasy and having a beautifully painted Bretonnian army. Oof. And then it just got shelved. And Old World came out, army came back out again. Maybe they'll release Deathwatch again in a future edition. I wouldn't rush to sell it. Get the book, see what you can play with it. Keep your models, use the opportunity to work on them and paint them up so they look pretty. As a hobby project, if you really want to. It's an army that definitely rewards that.
Yeah, just wait for the book before we doom about
it. Yep. Luke asks, what percentage of WTC players still think that Linus's list is a psyop?
It still might be.
We'll find out at the WTC, won't we?
As Poland say, everything I don't like is a psyop.
All right, more seriously, Frank asks, what did everyone thoughts on the amount of Sangard that showed up in Blood Angels lists?
I hate that data sheet so much.
I don't understand why people are taking so many of them. They don't. They
They
Like,
are more durable. They hit.
they are more
It's,
durable.
it's a
hard.
good unit, right? But I think that what the unit does is it leans into some of the things you get to avoid by playing Blood Angels in Marines as unusual,
like
like
thinking.
being focused on your oath target or being reliant on AOC and stuff like that, and it kind of pushes you back in that direction. And so in that kind of way, I'm not a huge fan, but it is a powerful unit. I mean, it's better than Vanguard vets. It's just more expensive.
Mhm.
That's probably
So-
fair. I still
Yeah.
like the one Vanguard unit. I think more than that is excessive, but yes.
All right. We all have different answers to this. We already went through the list that's scratching your heads earlier. What is the worst list in your pod, you cowards?
Well, there's a guy playing Thousand Sons that are like magical Chaos Knights.
Let's go look at my matrix again. God, how dare you? I'm trying to think what like actually stood out as being.
So yeah, this is like simultaneously the coolest, and I think maybe the one of the weaker lists in our pod is the there's an orc player for I think it's Greece. I gotta double check. No, playing the Beast Snagga detachment, which is super
Oh,
cool, and I love it. But it's not one which I have personally found success with. So
That's fair. I remember speaking to you right when that was coming out, and you were like, "Yeah, that looks
So
really cool.
excited.
Like all those attachments are viable." And
Yeah.
then you're like, "And you could turn one charge with it. It's got scouts." It's
It took one game.
one game.
Then I was like, oh yeah, this thing is the size of a pepperoni pizza. I can't use these units.
For me, and condolences to them for this, but I think it's Singapore, Thailand's World Leaders list. Because it is Angron, a World Leaders Demon Prince with a Helm of Brazen Ire, 20, 10, 10, 10, 10, so 70 Jackals, 3 menus of 8 bounds, 3 units of Chaos Spawn. So Brian loves this list. 2 World Leaders Forge Fiends, and then a World Leaders Mauler Fiend.
Yeah, I like the Thousand Sons ones because they have an invuln and Fiona Pain. The World Eaters ones don't have invulns.
They have a
No,
4
they
of
just
Field of Pain.
they can
a
have
lot of the
they
time.
can have a 4-up Field of
They
Pain.
will have a 4.
They usually have a 4-up Field of Pain, but every now and then the World Leader player decides to make a bad decision and takes something else.
I'm sorry, brother.
our-
It's Slovakia, not Greece. That has it.
I'm gonna be honest. Our pods lists are very like homogenized because we all tested together. There are like so like our pod has 3 copies of the same CSM list. So like there's a lot of genuine like very similar. Like all of the sisters lists are like within 2 units of each other. I know that's very similar across all of them, but we're all like almost point for point playing Myson's list with a couple of tweaks. So I'm kind of like Luxembourg's triple monolith. I have just never been all that impressed with triple monolith as a build. Luxembourg have it, and I think it's generally fairly lackluster. And then there is a Grey Knight list that I'm not a huge fan of. I think. Yeah, it's just like 10 librarians, 3x5 strikes, 3x5, 3 NDKs, and then like Draco double librarian, and just like it feels very white bread generic GK that has been kind of underwhelming for a couple of months now. It doesn't really feel like it pushes the box anywhere, which is Northern Ireland is playing. But outside of that, like all of the teams lists are fairly, they're all fairly standardized. It's hard to be like, oh yeah, this specifically is better than the others. I don't love Netherlands' invasion fleet list. It's kind of, I feel like if you're going to play Invasion Fleet, you're playing it for Old One Eye and the double Carnifex brick, and they only have a single Carnifex, and it's not, and it's a melee Carnifex with a Venom Cannon, and I've just like not all that. Yeah, it's a Venom Cannon Scything Claws Carnifex to go with Old One Eye in Invasion Fleet, and I'm just kind of like, if for me feels like defeating the point of playing that detachment to not bring Old One Eye plus Carnifexes. So, but I know he's
still just as good as it was at WTC last year.
Well, it has lethal hits and sustained hits now against infantry because of the Kive turn. So,
yep.
So yeah, but I know Ron stepped in last minute to help a drop from Team Netherlands. So I don't know how much that's just the list he was playing beforehand that got adapted into the team, things like that. So, or it might just be playing a completely different dimension to what I'm thinking about, and it'll do really well. So yeah, our pod doesn't.
Someone's always
really
wrong.
Stand out terrible. Yeah, someone's always wrong, but often it's me. So
yeah,
the obvious answer for your pod is whatever Dino's playing.
He's playing the same CSM list as 2 other people in the pod.
Yeah, he's gonna find a way to make it Dino.
So,
yeah, it's just Dino's way of playing it. Is what you're saying here, Brian.
Hilarious thing with those lists. Okay, so we all have Skark's CSM list because it's a really good list. All three of the teams that copied it changed exactly one thing in the list. We all changed one thing. We all changed it differently. All of us changed the loadout on the Hellbrute.
Oh.
So Skark's has a hammer and a las cannon. Ours has a fist and a multi-melta because that's the model we had, and it makes so little difference. And then Luxembourg and Netherlands both have double melee weapons on theirs.
I don't think it's going to have that much of an impact on how those lists perform.
But it does make their two lists worse than our version. So because they don't have a multi-melta with the sustained hits and lethal hits that we have. So
las cannon can reach out further.
Yeah, but they don't have the las cannon either. So
no,
they have double melee.
Skark.
Yeah, they might be worse than Skark's list, but it's better than their twos.
Skark will probably just do better than all three of those anyways because he's Skark, but
Skark might do better than the three of them combined.
Let's not put that evil on the world.
Skark might put up 140. That would be very well within the realm of Skark.
He came close last year.
120.
24.
No, Brian got 126 last year, so it must have been more than that.
He was like 2 points over me or something. I think it's 128 or something.
Yeah, because you had 2 13-7s and 5 20-0s. So
yeah.
So yeah, I don't think it's going to happen, but I think it could.
Yeah. All right. Bobby, the RPG Luminary, has 3 questions specifically for Innes. The first one is, how are Tyranids treating you in the new Pariah Nexus landscape?
I really like Tyranids. I think they still have some fairly fundamental problems with just like playing singles right now. The Vanguard list is cool, but just it really feels like it bounces into some fairly hard brick walls with either its damage output, its resilience, or its shenanigans just not quite working in the right environments. I know some people did really well with it at Tacoma, but they also just had some rough times with it. Like it felt like all of the losses it suffered were fairly like brutal from looking at some of the results or like just kind of seeing how it plays. Invasion Fleet, Crusher Stampede, and Nexus all do really cool things, and I think they're all really interesting. I really, really, really enjoy my Snapdragon Nexus. It's really great fun to play. When I played my Vanguard list at the GT one a couple of weeks ago, every single game I played, I was just like, I wish I was playing Nexus, like the entire time. Every time my opponent failed the battle shock test and I couldn't grenade them, I'm just like, why are they not dead right now? And that's really, really compelling, and I really enjoy it. But it does just have existential problems with a couple of matchups where it just isn't that great, and it's unlikely to win them. It can hold them close, but it's not going to win those games. And in singles play right now, that's a little bit difficult for me to be like, I'm going to jump into Tyranids after WTC. But I am enjoying them. I think they're great fun. But I'm unlikely to really roll with them long term. I don't think I'm going to be pushing for best in faction Tyranids in the ITC this year. I don't think that's on the cards for me.
Makes sense. All right. Second question: what baked goods are you planning to make for LVO?
For LVO, well, first of all, whatever Ben wants me to bring him, because Ben is very generously hosting me. So I'm gonna bring a case of stuff for Ben, and then I will make more of that to bring to the general public at LVO. I will bring as much as I feasibly can. It will probably not be a massive amount, but I will definitely bring some. I will also be bringing some to WTC for the same reason. So yeah, but obviously it's going to go priority to the stat check and the people that are cool that I know already. Like, so I will bring as much as I can, but I cannot promise a ton. I do have to unfortunately bring luggage in my luggage, so we'll see what I can do. But I did Blondies and Pommier for last weekend at the Falkirk GT, which were super great and very well received.
Nice. And finally, do you believe in Joe Hendry?
I don't know. Should I believe in Joe Hendry?
It's a Scottish wrestler.
Sorry, I have absolutely no concept of what you're talking about.
I had a feeling that was going to go whoop, but we tried. All right. This is actually an interesting one. Hi, all. Any thoughts? This is from Coco Jack H. Any thoughts on people choosing to take Retaliation Cadre over the more conventional Tau lists?
Well, we have Retaliation Cadre.
I could say, from watching 2 people in the top 32 at Tacoma play Retaliation Cadre, that list fucks, and it is a ton of fun to watch someone pilot. Shout out to Hank Adams, who had nothing but battle suits in his list, which I think was worse than it could have been, but it was very funny to just see nothing but
far off.
Riptides, crisis battle suits, and stealth battle suits.
To be fair, our list for WTC has 2 Crew Talks riders and is all battle suits otherwise. So
you could have done it. You were so close to greatness.
Yeah, but if we could cut them for another stealth team, I'm sure we'd have considered it. But We already had 3 of those. I actually, so at the GT I was at this weekend, the only game I lost was the Red Cadre, where I lost by 2 points. I played a really, really close game in the Ritual, which ended 79-81. I had to kill a full health Riptide, a 12 health Riptide with a Rubric squad and 2 Rhinos, and it wasn't on an objective. And I did not kill that Riptide to win by 1 point with area denial. So yeah, I went down with that one. It's a really, really cool list. It was already like a kind of compelling detachment. Like we'd all seen the theory crafting on it when the Goddess came out, and then the points drops went up, and everything went up like kind of cataclysmically for Tau. And then the Pariah Nexus points were very, very kind to Crisis Suits.
They were very
felt like
generous.
all the characters and all the Crisis Suits came down, as well as some of the circulars around them, and you fit. Like our list is 6 squads of suits, 3 characters, 3 Riptides, 2 Crew Talks, and 3 stealth themes, and a Ghost Guild. It is so much stuff that gets +1 strength and +1 EP when it's close. It has really good stratagems. It has a ton of flexibility. Just the fact that you can run like all the different suit options and then you can flex the characters between them depending on what you need in that given matchup makes it very, very adaptable. I'm not going to say what it's like adaptable for, but you can figure out that yourselves if you're going to play WTC. But yeah, it's a it's a detachment again that really rewards you putting the time into it and like getting the most out of it because it's just really powerful. It's the kind of thing that I imagine if Brian was a lesser team that he would have been all over. Because it's exactly right up his street. Flexible, adaptable, fast shooty Tau. Yeah.
You had to like rip a matrix off the top of your head real fast. What would that be?
No, not gonna do that.
Just like a guess, man. That's all. Just like what do you?
Well, it absolutely smashes everything. Obviously, is
okay.
Yeah, loses to nothing except for GSC, and that's the one problem.
Yep, exactly. That was what we were worried about the GSC. Man, that's why I've been hiding my GSC tech for after WTC.
Yeah, it's why Eric couldn't really shine this year.
Exactly. What are your thoughts on Red Cadre as a general concept, Brian?
I think it's a really cool list. I mean, our army in general. I think it's got the best enhancements in that book. And some of the best enhancements in the game.
Other than the enhancement that is 25 points battlesuit model only.
Let's not worry about that one. That is also that is the best enhancement in the game. So
I had to stop for a minute, and then I was like, "Oh, right." I want to explain what happened with that one.
Yeah, so the Pure Time Engram Neurochip allows you to repeat stratagems.
That's the only thing it gives you?
That's the only thing it gives you, and that doesn't work right now because you can't echo stratagems unless it specifically names a stratagem. So it is currently 25 points for an enhancement that gives you battlesuit model only is the only rules text it has.
It's the coolest enhancement in the game. And then it's got some really, really good enhancements though, like between the grenade pack and everything else. Really good strats. I mean, 1 CP Fire and Fade is hard to beat. The rule's really good. It's hard to activate in a way that doesn't cause you to lose the game.
Danger Close is the name of the game for that detachment.
Yeah. But if you can navigate it, it's incredibly powerful. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a good list, and it's a really cool list, and it's super themey, and it's Farsight's boys, man. So it's hard not to love it.
Yep. Oh, sounds great. All right. Ivan C., I have trimmed your question down, but I'm going to read it out, and then I'm just going to put it here. Hey, guys, good luck at WTC. I want to take a break from Grey Knights. I've been playing them for about a year, but just looking for something new. I have 3 armies ready to go, but not sure which one I want to change to. Can you guys give me some advice on how did you guys pick new armies when you guys are looking through to change things up? I have World Leaders, Custodians, and Sisters ready to go. Thank you. I mean, to be quite honest, I'd probably just grab the Sisters because they're 1, strongest, and 2, they have a lot of really fun and interesting builds right now. Whereas World Leaders and Custodians both tend to be pretty monodimensional in terms of lists that work.
I mostly just pick an army that's good right now that looks like it has flexibility for me to try to win tournaments with is really the goal, right? Pick an army that looks like it's got space that gives you the play that you need to win any matchup, even if they are tougher. Like if you can play your way through a tough matchup, and Sisters are an army that can 100% do that. Like it feels like any game you can play, you can definitely take the game to it. So
yeah, for me, I definitely didn't think that I'd be building Magical Chaos Knights right now, but hey, that's where we're at.
I do love the puppies. I mean, as a purveyor of my own fine little puppies.
Yeah. I did wish I could figure out a way to make a Mauler Fiend work in T-Suns, but
hey man, they're really good when you pair them to heroic with your on your Vortex piece. I thought about that for a hot minute. I was like, I wonder if I should try this, but I was like, it's too little time.
Roll up with the other Mutalith.
Yeah, I already got my Fortunes commission. I'm like, I'm not going to tell them to change again.
Yeah, that's basically where I'm at. Right, like for me, it tends to be army that I will find interesting to hobby, but also an army that isn't going to like lock me into a faction that I'm not going to enjoy long term. It's one of the reasons.
I'll 100%.
It's one of the reasons I got.
Tournaments.
Well, it's one of the reasons I got rid of my guard, as I hadn't played them in any way that I found enjoyable, and they were just a drag on my hobby. So I said goodbye.
Dude, everybody that plays guard sucks, especially Nos.
No, the Canadian guard player is a gem. All other guard players can be crap for all I'm concerned with. Bobby, RPG Luminary, what are Magical Chaos Knights exactly? So this is the joke that the joke name that people have given to the T-Suns list that Brian, myself, and a couple others are running. Where it is 3 Megalith Vortex Beasts, 2 Forge Fiends, and then the regular core of T-Suns plus a small scoring package. So it still has between like 14 and 18 Cabal points, but it has a whole lot of chunk that just runs around the map.
Chunk. Ben apparently wants me to bring Blondie's Delvio, so that will be on the roster.
Ooh, that would be good. All right. Willow, I think the Shadow round is dope because 4 games in a day is fun, but I get it's not for everyone. What should we be doing something else for Super Majors?
Brackets and multiple winners. Come on, guys.
Yeah, basically. I think that people should be fine with having multiple undefeated in an event. I also, and this is my hot take, think that if you have multiple undefeated, they should both just get first prize.
Yeah, that makes me go gross.
Like the idea of like if you have like a 5-round event with 60 people and you have 2 people that are 5-0, you can either play a 6th round and have them as an undefeated, or you just give them both first place. There's nothing wrong with that.
Do that one.
As a guy who's played his share of games in an empty auditorium next to a bathroom, I totally understand not wanting to play those final elimination rounds, but something about going to a tournament and not having it start as a separate event, and even within that is issues, but like just having multiple winners at the end just feels.
Yeah, so I'd say split the tournament into brackets of the number of players your event can sustain. If there are 128 players in your tournament, you're playing 5 rounds, you have 2 64-player tournaments.
But I feel like one of the downsides of that, especially again within the context of UKTC, is when you go to those events, you tend to play against the really good players that you expect to play against at the event towards the end of the tournament. If you go to that tournament and you have a coin flip of being in the same tournament as them now, it feels kind of bad. But you already have that coin flip, right? Like you already
have that coin flip whether you're going to play them at all.
I mean, you do and you don't. I mean, if you make it to the elimination rounds, usually you're playing
the elimination rounds that not even all the 5-0s play through.
Yeah, in this situation, it's a 7-round tournament, so that would only kick in a 128 players, right? So if the UKTC event was 256 players, you already have that coin flip, right? You would just have 228 player 7-round tournaments, and there'd be 2 undefeated players at the end of it because there's already not a playoff between those players, right? Because there was already a 5th person who didn't make cut or an 8th person who didn't make cut. So if that's you already should have played that tournament.
If the choice was I play in a top 4 where I feel like I'm being challenged, or a top 4, or I could miss out on a top 4. But I could miss out on that top 4, even going undefeated. Or I could play I'm guaranteed to make the top 4 if I'm undefeated, but I could be playing against people that are not challenging me. I would rather have the opportunity potentially miss out, but know that if I make it, I'm being challenged.
But that could already happen, right? Because in the hypothetical scenario where you hit the top 4 that isn't a challenge, those could be the other 3 people that make the top 4. Right?
Usually
so there's already a sense. Usually it's not the case, but it's usually not going to be the case that there's nobody else good in your top 4 cut, right? Like it's not an argument, I don't think. You're just like averse to the idea of the event not being the full amount of players, right?
I also, and this is one of the other things, am strongly opposed to any kind of event format where all players don't have the opportunity to play all rounds.
I don't mind. I'm fine with the top cut.
No, I'm not, because what it boils down to is you have. And this is actually like a really fundamental issue to me because it comes up a lot from players who are not familiar with the open format, where they come in and be like, so do we get to play all 6 games? Like, no, you play all 8 games if you want. You play as many games as you want. You paid for 8 games, you get 8 games. When you go to an event and you get to play 5 games, and then a certain select group of players get to play 7 or 8 games on your dime, it's not fair to you.
Yeah, I broadly agree with that as well. I think the UKTC events just need to suck it up and play 6 rounds for everybody, and then have a top cut after that. But whatever. If you didn't care about your standing and you're only going to play for 5 games, just drop before the 6th round.
Yeah, I mean, I think the real answer to this is 3-day tournaments, right? But that makes it logistically difficult.
Yeah,
3-day tournaments, or you run smaller tournaments more frequently.
Adepticon, 4 rounds for everybody, and then fuck off.
Oh yeah, that is definitely the worst. Thank you, Willow Weeks, for reminding me that event exists.
It's a joke.
Yeah, I think, but like Coventry, for example, is I think one of the most enjoyable events in the UKTC because of the fact that you get a true undefeated at the end of all the rounds.
Yeah, Coventry and LGT are
rounds.
your
Point
that, right?
There is no elimination, but it's also.
Goodbye, Brian.
We lost him.
You wouldn't have the problem, so it's a bit of a
UKTC got him.
Yep.
Sorry,
Big
a bit of a catch. I live in central London, so my internet is only mediocre. I think the Coventry one is nice because of all the points you guys are making. But if you have all your events be like that, then you're going to lose the people coming in because they can't all do that. So it starts to kind of be this catch-22, right?
Yeah. Goran, to answer your comment in chat, I addressed the Tacoma thing earlier in the episode. If you want to talk about that later, I don't really have anything else to say about it at this moment. So where we're at.
Why do demons have such a poor showing in lists? Perhaps more than they suck. Fundamentally, demons are a very one-phase army. They only really play melee. Their shooting isn't that great, and that is difficult to play. They are very reliant on one of the core durability mechanics of this edition is cover, and demons just don't get it. And I think that's a bigger problem. That's a fairly big problem for the army because everybody else is slightly more durable, and they are not. They get no benefit from hiding. They are kind of encouraged into being very aggressive, and that is a fundamentally swingy play style. They're also reliant on deep strike charges. Like, I get that a lot of the deep strike charges are 6s and 5s, but those still fail, and it is cataclysmic when your 400-point model fails a deep strike charge. And they don't have a lot of good ways to get around that outside of exactly rapid ingress, which doesn't work off the uppy downy stratagem. So you're kind of locked into throwing those charges.
General performance, demons have been doing fine. Like, they, for example, last 3 weeks, 84 players, 4% of the meta, 52.7% win rate, 2 event wins, 7 top 4s, 1.56 overrep. Like, they're not that just bad anymore. Yeah, they just aren't showing up in WTC, and I think part of that is because 1, they're one-dimensional, and 2, they may not necessarily fit team comps very well. And of course, there's the third issue of you may not have a player who can play them.
And there are still like 2 people playing them, right? Like Austria have one, and
Sweden,
Dora
I think, is the other one.
Austria, and then I want to see. No,
Sweden.
Yeah, Sweden. Yeah, Sweden have it.
Yeah.
So they're definitely still showing up. Like they're still around. Malta have them as well.
I mean, they definitely have a place. They definitely got buffed.
Malta's one is a drug, though.
Yeah,
we talked about that one.
Oops, all graders. Yeah,
7 graders and exactly 2,000 points.
Yeah, Be'lakor, 2 Bloodthirsters, 1 with the Argrath, Great and Clean 1, Kairos, Lord of Change, Rodigus, 2,000 points on the dot. Glorious.
Yeah. And Eric called this Chen. That was his first question. His second question is toss up some wild speculation or hopes for what actual full agents armies are going to be like.
Terrible.
Terrible, probably. I don't even know how you feel the full agents army, to be honest, because even C Bishop, who's been running them at UKTC events for the last little while, is usually fleshing out the army with knights to actually hit 2,000 points.
Yeah, I imagine it's like 3 emulators of Battle Sisters, a Grey Knight Terminator squad, like all of the Inquisitors to attach to them. You have like, people shooting at the top hatches of rhinos or whatever, and Kotiaz joining a squad of Terminators, and then you have like Canis Rex, and I assume that's what an agent list looks like.
Yep, that sounds about right. That sounds very silly, and I don't know. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. I don't know. Just put a Porphyrion in there. You're already memeing around.
Don't do that.
Warhound? We had 2 of them.
WTC another band, but
no. And I think Shop even isn't taking his double stomp list that he promised he would take there. All right, I'm going to quickly go through YouTube questions, and if you want to try anything else. Donald Plummer was asking how's Retaliation Cadre. I believe that was in relation to stats, so I will quickly pull that up. But I do remember them doing reasonably well. So for the first 3 weeks of the Pariah Nexus in the Tau Empire, the Retaliation Cadre has averaged a 50.2% win rate, and they are also the most popular Tau detachment right now by exactly one player, where Monka has 44 and Retaliation has had 45, and they are 2% higher in win rate than Monka. Kaiyun remains the winningest of the Tau detachments with a 53% win rate. Nas is apparently asking Brian, should I come to yours now to crash the show? I guess he was talking about coming over to your place.
Yeah, the answer is never. You should never come to mine, ever, for any context.
I mean, Brian does have a kick-ass view, I'm not going to lie, but...
Yeah. Clown Mode, thank you for the $4.99. What is your Italian spicy meatball take on one list you saw?
I think we did that already.
We kind of already covered that. Aren't any others that really come to mind right now.
Everybody who's playing Zoanthropes in Vanguard hates themselves and also really loves having their Neurothrope off their Neuroturn off the board so they can't hand Synapse. But I hate Vanguard.
That's my favorite minigame in a Tyranids game is Zoanthropes trying to get a beat on Magnus and me just kind of wringing my hands being like, all right, come on, where are they going to show up?
Yeah, Eric, you mean with the new codex? I think it's still going to be about the same. It's a whole bunch of shitty agents units. I don't think it's going to be any better.
The guy playing triple Rampage or Chaos Knights, isn't there?
Yeah, there were. Speaking of, Pizza Bagels pointed out Triple Lancer. There were at least 2, if not 3 people running Triple Lancer at Tacoma, and it was very funny to watch them play because it was either they made all their charges and the game ended on turn 2, or they made none of their charges and the game ended on turn 2.
That sounds utterly awful, just for what it's worth.
Sure, but it's fun.
I'm a very different definition of fun than playing rock, paper, scissors, Warhammer, but sure. All right, I think that's the last question we had from the chat.
Yes, it is.
All right, I think that means that I need to go and find that goddamn file in that server again and read out some names.
I can do it for you.
Yeah, you do that. That sounds better. That sounds like it'll hurt my.
It's more likely for me to find it than you. All right. So, also because this way you can do your closing out after I do this. All right. So, as part of the $15 a tier month, you get a shout out in the Discord. You get an opportunity to get a crisp high five from one of us if you see us in an event, and you also get a few other small things that we occasionally do. But those are the major things. I'll walk up behind you and ask if that's how you think things work at an event. So going through this, so you got to call it, you get a shout out on here. So I would like to thank in particular Christopher, Dan Finnis, Iear Irvine, Willow Weeks, Dan F, Luke, Dan F McCarthy, David Clark, Iear Skibbity Pop, Dan Ear, Iear Dab, James H, Colton, Dan F Miller, Fungus, John, 2 high fives at the same time, man, V8 gang. Cam, F. Dan Morton, hog emoji. Archon Rahal, congrats on 100 episodes. Josiah Gattle. Frankie Fresh. Isaac beat Ben Jurek with the list I stole from him because I went second and he rolled bad Tirada. And then David, he's not a high five member. We thank him anyways, and the rules don't say I can't put his name in Gaylord. Of course, scrolled over and then saw that. So thank you all of you for your support. It's very much appreciated.
None of you are free from sin.
No, definitely not. Yeah, Ennis, you want to rhyme us out?
Thank you so much, everybody, for being with us for episode 101 of StatCheck WTC List and Found. Brian, is there anything you want to shout out before we finish up? Anywhere people can follow you on socials? What's the team social? Do all this stuff.
Follow Team USA on Facebook, and I just want to shout out my teammates as well. All 8 of us are going to WTC this year, which is pretty sweet. So I'm really excited for that. Unfortunately, most of them are on the wrong teams, but it's all right. Should be exciting to see how everyone does. The Ignite chat finally came alive again after the sub. It was a barren wasteland for a long time, so it's nice to see everyone kind of chatting together again. And it's good to have everyone back on the same page. But other than that, just follow StatCheck, man. This thing's awesome.
Thank you very much, Brian. All right, everybody. If you're at a tournament this weekend, very best of luck. Kick the backsides out of it. I am at the Northeast Open in Newcastle this weekend, so if you're there, come and say hi. I will not have any baking with me this weekend. I simply do not have time, so I will not be doing any, unfortunately. But come say hi if you're there. If you're at another tournament, very best of luck. Kick some backside, unless you're playing Gene Slayer Cults, in which case, please lose a bunch so we get buffed, because I would love to play the army going forwards. Thank you so much for being with us for another episode of Stat Check. We will catch you next week, same bat time, same bat channel. Nathan's not here to do the bye-bye, so we're just not going to do it. Catch you later.
Cheers.